Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar that seeks to describe the concessions available to manufacturers under 3 incentive programs. I am Raquel Pinder, Acting Director of Trade and Industry. During the presentations, you can ask questions in the chat or post them on Facebook. We will seek to answer them during the question and answer period. We will also compile a list of frequently asked questions that we will post to our website. I will now turn over to the Honorable Ellsworth Johnson, Minister of Financial Services, Trade, Industry, and Immigration, for a welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Permanent Secretary, Ms. Janice Miller, representatives of the business community, partners from other government ministries, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I want to welcome you to this webinar today. The purpose of this webinar is to raise awareness among Bahamian businesses and entrepreneurs on the existing concessions that are available to manufacturers. Today, the manufacturing industry in the Bahamas is quite small, contributing to about 2% of the gross domestic product. While most of the activity is concentrated in the country's capital, New Providence at 62%, followed by 28% in Grand Bahama and 10% in the Family Islands. According to the 2019 Labor Force Survey, women make up about 38% of the persons employed in the manufacturing industry. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has made Bahamians and indeed policymakers develop practical ways to diversify our economy while ensuring that development is sustainable, inclusive, and leads to economic empowerment of our people, irrespective of age, gender, or location in our archipelago. This webinar is one of the ways that policymakers seek to support entrepreneurial activities in the manufacturing sector. Many people falsely mistake the word manufacturing to only correlate with a factory space, but this webinar will provide additional information on the opportunities for micro, small, and medium enterprises under the Cottage and Light Industries Act, Agricultural Manufacturers Act, the Industries Encouragement Act, and provide insight on the customs procedures at the borders. My ministry has collaborated with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry and Marine Resources, also with the Customs Department, in hosting this webinar to provide you with a clear picture on who is qualified to benefit from concessions, the application process, and to answer any questions you may have during the question and answer segment. With that being said, I would like to thank you for participating in today's event, and we hope you benefit from the content that will be shared today. I thank you.
Thank you, Director Pinder and Minister Johnson. I stand on the established protocol. A pleasant good morning to all. My name is Samuel Campbell Jr. I'm a Financial and Trade Officer and Attorney at the Ministry of Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration. And I'm happy to be moderating this exciting and sure to be informative webinar discussing how Bahamians can access and benefit from the various concessions and incentives as it relates to manufacturing. Please join me in welcoming our presenters. Firstly, from the Ministry of Finance, we have Talman Bryce, Senior Assistant Director of Revenue, and Mahalia Budel, Revenue Analyst, who will, in the Ministry of Financial Services and Ministry of Finance, who will prepare a presentation on the cottage and light industries concessions granted by the Ministry of Finance under the Tariff Act. Our second presenter this morning is Ms. Anva Burrows, who is an Agricultural and Marketing Officer with the Department of Agriculture in the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources, where she has been responsible for agriculture, education, and awareness with special emphasis on the sustainability of Bahamian agriculture produce. She will be speaking on the process to obtain concessions under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act. Ms. Rochelle Smith, First Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Financial Services, Trade and Industry, and Immigration, will be making a presentation on the Industries Encouragement Act and how to get approved for the various concessions. And last but not least, we'll have Ms. Jesmika Cooper-Monroe, Customs Officer, who was attached to the newly formed Prosecutions Unit and employed with the Bahamas Customs Department for the past 12 years, who will be wrapping up the presentations by speaking on the procedures at the border when dealing with the various concessions. A friendly reminder for the audience that don't forget to use the Q&A function for any thoughts, comments, or questions that you may have. We hope to get to as many questions as possible for the presenters in our designated live Q&A period at the conclusion of the presentations. We know that we have over 500 persons registered, and this webinar is also being live streamed on Facebook for those who may not be on the Zoom link. The webinar is also being recorded, and the recording will be posted on all Ministry of Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration social media pages, and the website in due course. We will get the presentation started with Mr. Bryce and Ms. Budel from the Ministry of Finance, who will be speaking on the cottage and light industries. If you're ready, the screen is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, as mentioned, my name is Talman Bryce, and I'm with the Revenue section here in the Ministry of Finance. First, I would like to thank the Ministry of Financial Services and Investment, Trade and Industry, and Immigration for hosting this webinar. We spend a lot of time processing applications, but not much time advising the public on the concessions that are available to them. So this webinar is very timely and very needed.
Yeah,
so hats off to Ms. Pinder and the crew. Secondly, I would like to tell you a little bit about the revenue section. We basically have two functions. One, we assist with the development of revenue policy and revenue administration. And as a consequence, we review the revenue systems and procedures of the various revenue collection agencies to ensure compliance with legal regulations and ensure there is efficient and effective revenue administration. We also, am I on? Okay, so we also assist in development of revenue policy. So whenever there is an increase in fees or a decrease in fees or taxes, most recently the VAT holiday for school supplies, the revenue section had a hand in that process. Our second function, which takes up most of our time, is the processing of concessions. So on a daily basis, we process applications for the waiver of customs duties, value-added tax, stamp duties, and even property tax. Now, there are many entities that qualify for exemption. Just to name a few, there will be there's educational organizations, religious and charitable organizations, farmers, fishermen, taxi and livery operators, international organizations, just to name a few. Currently, we process concessions under the Special Economic Recovery Zone order for the islands of Grand Bahama and Abaco in an effort to assist those persons who suffered damage during the hurricane. We also process application under the Economic Empowerment Zone, better known as the Over the Hill Initiative. So we're quite busy. But more specifically to this webinar, we also process applications for persons who are involved in the cottage and light industry. Some time ago, the government decided that they want to encourage manufacturing within the Bahamas. And they felt one of the best ways to do this was to allow concessions to that industry. So legislation was passed to achieve this effort. Currently on our register, we have over 1,011 manufacturers on our register. Some of them are more active than others. Some just applied and we never saw them again, but some people come in every year to apply. There is a process for applying. And we have Ms. Mahalia Boodle here, who would go over the process because she's intimately involved with the application process. So I'm turning it over to Ms. Boodle.
Good morning, everyone. Protocol has already been established, and I wish to thank you for having me. Before I begin my presentation, I will start with a quote by Alan Mulally, and I quote, "No country is successful in the long term without a really strong and vibrant manufacturing base." End of quote. The cottage and light industry provision is reserved for individuals wanting to become manufacturers. It is particularly designed for persons who want to engage themselves in manufacturing and assembling. The procedure requirement when applying for exemption under Tariff Code 9818 of the first schedule to the Tariff Act. The following important documents are needed for manufacturers when making an application for exemption for raw materials and equipment. The applicant must obtain an application from the Revenue Section, Ministry of Finance. Application must be completed, given quantity, tariff code, and description and value. A copy of the business license, a copy of the tax compliance certificate. And for new applicants, they must submit copies of the first 4 pages of their passport and NIB card. Application must be submitted to the Ministry of Finance, Revenue Section for approval. Approved application is valid for one year from the date of approval. I will now present samples of the cottage and light industries application. The first page of the application must be filled out, giving a brief synopsis of you and the individual and of the business. The second page is to list all raw materials items to be imported. The third page on the application is to list of all the equipment and machinery as it relates to your production. Please take note of pages 3, 2, and 3. There are 4 columns on each page. In column 1, which is quantities, the use of this column is for you to list the amount of items needed on a yearly basis, to avoid having to revert to the Ministry of Finance every time there is a shipment. In column 2, all items must be tariff coded on the application. This code is a descriptive code for each item that the applicant will be importing into country. This code can be obtained from either a customs broker, or you can have use of a customs officer for assistance. In column 3, you must give the description of the items you are importing. And in column 4, you must state the value of the items. Additionally, we are asking all businesses to submit their application for renewal at a minimum of 2 weeks prior to the expiration date of their current approval. To date, we have approximately 1,011 small businesses registered under the cottage and light industry. And if you need any further queries or questions, you may contact the following person, Mr. Mark Edgar, at the number listed and his email, or myself, Mihail Yabuto, at the number listed and the email there provided. Thank you for having me and a pleasant good morning.
And that's it from the Ministry of Finance thus far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Boodle and Mr. Bryce from Ministry of Finance for that very great breakdown on the cottage and light industries. And we will now be sharing a short video highlighting a Bahamian manufacturer who has benefited from these concessions.
What we offer to the public is vinyl and aluminum products. Our products range from fencing, arbors, gazebos, railings, gates, automated gates, telephone entry systems, things like that. We also offer hurricane shutters, all 5 designs. We do benefit from some rate reduction in terms of the importing of goods, and that has been helpful. Well, the process, it requires that you have your business license, your NID current, and then, the list of products that you do use. You have to make sure that you apply for that, knowing the code. And we had to get the help of, a custom broker to be able to help us to do all of that and put it together. It wasn't difficult once the process got started. The difficulty was in making sure that we get all of the preliminary information in order to have that. Well, the Symphony's Aluminum Binder was established in July of 2000, a project that a friend of ours asked us to do for them. They wanted to put some vinyl fencing around the front of their yard. She knew that my husband loved to work with hammer and nails, I call it. So she asked him, could he install the fencing for them? He did it, and off it went. Legislation, we would like to see some more in terms of when homes are being built. The requirement for hurricane shutters would be part of that. That way, that will also generate more jobs and to facilitate the need, protecting Bahamian homes. In order to keep people employed and to produce things on a more faster pace, you need more concessions in order to do that.
Many thanks to Symphony Fencing for that great insight. Now, I know there's a lot of excitement around the possibilities for expanding our agricultural industry. And our next presentation will be on the Agricultural Manufacturers Act with our speaker from the Department of Agriculture, Ms. Amber Burrows. Ms. Burrows, if you're ready, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Good morning. The Agricultural Manufacturers Act commenced July 7th, 1913, and continues today to encourage the growth of agricultural manufactories in the Bahamas. One may ask, how does the Act encourage such efforts? It does by providing exemption of custom duties on imported supplies directly related to the processes involved in the manufacturing of agricultural goods. The exemption of custom duties on imported supplies is all in an effort to help reduce business cost with the aim of growing the sector through improved productivity and competitiveness. To date, there are less than 5 registrants under this act. And just for clarification, when we speak of supplies, we are referring to materials that enter into the cost of production of agricultural and/or marine products as finally manufactured, preserved, or packed. For example, building materials, factory equipment, and approved raw materials. So we will get started by defining what an agricultural factory is, as the definition of factory is open to interpretation. Thankfully, the Act gives a clear definition for its intended purpose. According to the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243, a factory in this context is used exclusively for the purpose of manufacturing, preserving, packing, or otherwise preparing for sale or export any agricultural, floricultural, or horticultural produce of the Bahamas. When we speak of agricultural products, we generally refer to goods used for consumption. Example, livestock, crops, dairy, marine products, and other miscellaneous agri-products like honey, for example. Some examples of floricultural products include annual bedding and garden plants, foliage plants, potted plants, cut flowers, and herbaceous plants.
Hi, Ms. Mafaro, sorry to interrupt, but we can't see your presentation. I think if you go to the slideshow and then
okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, we just see the first page. Yeah, I think if you click on slides, okay, no.
Can you tell me, sorry, can you tell me what you're seeing right now?
Okay, we're seeing it now in a different view. I think get close out of that, where you're at right now. Go on display settings. There we go. Perfect. Okay, you're good to go. Thank you.
Okay. Where do you need me to start from?
Wherever I think wherever you last finished is probably fine.
Okay, thank you so much. My apologies. Horticultural products. We were discussing the different types of products and produce under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act. So examples of horticultural products include landscaping, gardening, fruits and vegetable crops, ornamental flowers, and indoor plants. So we've defined what the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243 considers an agriculture factory. The types of processes to be carried out on site to achieve a final manufactured product from produce of the Bahamas for sale or export, as well as types of supplies eligible for exemption under the Act. We now move to describing in a bit more detail the kinds of supplies that would be eligible for exemption under this Act. And by supplies, we refer, as mentioned earlier, to those materials directly related to the processes involved in the manufacturing of agricultural products. For example, building materials for construction, that is the erecting, altering, repairing, and/or adapting of a building into a factory. Factory equipment, all machinery, tools, fixtures, or supplies required for the purpose of the processes carried on at a factory. Spare and replacement parts on approved raw materials. Approved raw materials refer to those materials provided by the applicant on application and approved by the Ministry of Agriculture. Please note, materials used for the factory's construction and equipment are only eligible for import duty exemption one time only. That is at the commencement of registration and subsequently only after expansion or replacement of the factory. We are going to now look at who qualifies for concession and how to make application to be registered under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243. Both Bahamians and non-Bahamians qualify to be registered under this act. However, note that all non-Bahamians must be approved to conduct business in the Bahamas by the NEC, the National Economic Council. This group is headed by the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and is the decision-making body in respect of all commercial projects undertaken by foreign direct investors. Now that we know who qualifies to make application, let's take a look at the application process. This is an overview of the application process. We will go into a bit more details afterwards. Step 1. The applicant must submit a written request for registration. 2. The Department of Agriculture sends a letter acknowledging receipt of the applicant's request. And 3. The Department of Agriculture conducts an interview and site inspection. 4. The applicant fills out, signs, and dates Form A provided by the Department of Agriculture in order to complete the application for submission. In step 5, the Department of Agriculture makes recommendation to the Minister of Agriculture for registration, along with no objections to listing of goods to be exempted in compliance with the Act and processes to be carried out by the applicant's factory. Step 6, the Office of the Minister of Agriculture advertises the notice of application in local newspapers. Step 7, the Minister of Agriculture, upon there being no objections to the notice issued, a certificate of registration to the Department of Agriculture. Step 8, the Department of Agriculture then notifies the applicant of approval and issues a certificate of registration. And step 9, the final step, is for the applicant to inform the Department of Finance and the Comptroller of Customs of registration under the said Act by providing supporting documents and proof of certificate of registration. So let's take a closer look at step 1. The first step is where the applicant must apply in writing to the Department of Agriculture, requesting to be registered under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243. A detailed copy of their business plan should be attached to the request. Step 2, the department responds to the applicant's written request to be registered by sending a letter of acknowledgement followed up by a phone call. The telephone contact ensures the applicant has familiarized her or himself with the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, and at this juncture would normally be told where to find a copy of the Act online and/or a copy would be emailed on receipt of an email address. During the call, an overview of the application process is also given along with the opportunity to answer any questions the applicant may have at that time. The phone call is also used to set up an interview and site inspection. The interview can be completed in office and a time arranged for site inspection, or both can be completed on inspection of site. At step 3, once a time has been selected for the interview and site inspection, these are some of the questions and information that would normally be sought during that interview. Personal information such as factory owner's name, address, contact information, company data, the location of the factory, company personnel, that is name of administrators and their job titles and nationalities, types of products, including the country of origin and suppliers. That is for all raw materials used in production. For example, chemicals, ingredients, machinery, all consistent with the operation. Methods being used for production and processing. The labor and workforce. The number of staff along with nationality and area of employment. For example, how many persons on the production line, administration, casual workers, permanent workers, and once again, the nationality of those in each area. Production output. If it is an existing factory, historical and projected output data is required. And if it's a new business, projected output information is required. Workplace health and safety looks at ensuring that there are safe methods to test products, there are first aid kits on hand, and compliance with safety and fire code regulations, easily accessible safety information for end users, proper labeling and instructional manuals, protocols for product recalls, compliance with the country's labor laws. Disposition of product. Here we look at how the product is positioned in the local and/or foreign markets if already established. Product price looks at both retail and wholesale prices in the local and/or foreign markets. And then a very important matter is that of environmental issues, dealing with resource shortages, sustainable practices, proper disposal of waste, biodegradable packaging options, and waste management and reduction. And finally, the total investment. Here, areas of land, building, equipment, raw materials, additives, and training are all examined. The information sought here provides the department with relevant information to complete a feasibility study and make recommendations for or against registration under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243. At step 4, once the site inspection and interview is completed, Form A is filled out, signed, and dated by the applicant. Form A is basically the cover letter addressed to the Minister of Agriculture for all supporting documents such as the applicant's original written request submitted to the department, the listing of all raw materials and equipment they wish to have considered for exemption of import duties. This completes the written application by the applicant. Step 5. The department submits the application along with its recommendation to the Minister for approval and processing. Please note that the department works with the applicant to ensure all documents and requirements are met before submission is made to the Minister of Agriculture. If the applicant, for whatever reason, has not shown or provided adequate documentation that what is proposed in the application can or would be done, that is, that they have the tools, personnel, and resources to carry on business, the applicant would be advised orally to make necessary changes before the application can be forwarded, and/or options of other concessions more suited to the business would be recommended, along with sources for additional information. If the applicant insists on making application as is, then the department's recommendation would be one of objection with explanation forwarded to the Office of the Minister of Agriculture. Step 6. The Office of the Minister of Agriculture is responsible for having a notice of the applicant's intent to manufacture agricultural produce in the Bahamas under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243, advertised in one or more newspapers circulating in the Bahamas. The notice has to be published in at least 2 successive issues with a closed date for the receipt and hearing of any written objections. Information included in the advertised notice would include the manufacturing processes and products to be manufactured. At step 7, all written objections received on or before the fixed date are investigated by the department and recommendations sent to the Minister of Agriculture. If there are no objections, approval of application under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243, is granted by the Minister of Agriculture, and a certificate of registration is sent to the department for issuance to the applicant. Step 8, the Office of the Director of Agriculture notifies the applicant of approval to be registered under the Act. An original copy along with a copy of the certificate of registration is presented to the applicant. The Director of Agriculture also extends courtesy to the Ministry of Finance and the Comptroller of Customs, informing them of the registration and provides all supporting documents to assist the new registrant when they seek to exercise exemptions under the Act. Step 9. The new registrant has the following responsibilities under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, Chapter 243. They must register with the Comptroller of Customs all documents of and pertaining to the certificate of registration. Supply a written listing of all approvals prescribed under the Act and maintain a proper record keeping of all transactions conducted under the Act. We've just gone through 9 detailed steps, and you may be thinking, wow. So here's 5 simple steps to describe the application process. 1, request. 2, interview and site inspection. 3, submission. 4, public notice, certificate of registration. And these are some frequently asked questions that we receive. The cost of registration under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act 243 is free. Processing time takes 4 to 6 weeks from receipt of written application. More often time it takes less, but time is given for any unforeseen circumstances or delays. Once the applicant is registered, there is a yearly renewal. Concessions under the said Act is removed when the registrant is found to be in breach of the Act. In the case of replacement equipment and/or if a new product and processing requires new equipment, a case would have to be put forward by the applicant to request approval for such equipment to be added to the approved listing. Resource information can be found on the government website, bahamas.gov.bs. And our contact information is on screen. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows, for that very comprehensive presentation, which I'm sure was very helpful to our participants. We will now move on to our next presenter, Ms. Rochelle Smith from the Ministry of Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration, who will be speaking on the Industries Encouragement Act and the various incentives contained. Ms. Smith, if you're ready, the screen is yours.
Good morning. This morning, it's a pleasure to present this presentation on the Industries Encouragement Act.
I'm going to step away for about 2 minutes, but I'm not too sure how much of my introductory comments I was actually heard before I was kicked off the internet. I'm having a little wonky here for me.
What is the Industries Encouragement Act? The Industries Encouragement Act is an act to encourage the establishment and development of industries in the country. What is manufacturing? Manufacturing is converting or transforming raw materials or semi-processed or processed materials into a different product, including the packaging or assembly. Sorry, one moment. Sorry about that. Who can apply to become an approved manufacturer? Small and medium-sized enterprises that have 1, between 1 and 50 employees, and 2, an annual turnover revenue of not more than $1 million. Concessions are concessions available under the Industries Encouragement Act. Customs duty exemptions are granted to approved manufacturers on raw materials and machinery, building materials, tools for building, altering, reconstructing, or extending factory premises. Customs duties exemptions. Customs duties exemptions are available on a one-time basis at the time of registration in the case of materials used for plant, i.e. factory and/or machinery, construction, and equipment. The only exception is if the factory is being extended or if the factory is being replaced. Customs duties exemptions that are not permitted: spare or replacement parts, protected raw materials, vehicles, protective gear, generators, consumables, unless they are specific to the manufacturing process, i.e. printer, ink, paper, pens, vehicle tires, etc. Export tax exemption. Approved manufacturers are entitled to exemption from export tax on export of their approved product for a period of 15 years commencing on the date of production stated in the approved manufacturer order. Income tax exemption. Approved manufacturers are entitled to exemptions from the income tax on profits earned from the manufacture of the approved product for a period of 15 years from the date of production specified in the approved manufacturer order. Real property exemptions. Approved manufacturers are entitled to have their factory premises where the approved product is manufactured exempted from real property tax for a period of 15 years from the date of production stated in the approved manufacturer's order. Applying to become an approved manufacturer. The IEA application is now available electronically on the ministry's website, which you can see. Documents required when applying. 1, completed IEA application. 2, certified banker's check in the amount of $100 payable to the public treasury. 3, a copy of the current business license. Number 4, copy of current tax compliance certificate. Five, certificate of incorporation, if applicable. 6, copy of passport for each principal shareholder. 7, a copy of the NIB card for each principal shareholder. And in the case of non-Bahamians, principal or shareholders, approval letters from the Bahamas Investment Authority. Process for new applications. New applications are reviewed to ensure certain criteria are met, such as, does the process qualify as manufacturing? Is the project feasible, economic, technical, environmental? What is the product? Is the applicant registered under any other incentive program? Notices are published in the Gazette. Process for new applications. Notices are published in the Gazette and dailies on 2 occasions. A period of 3 weeks from the final process is allowed for any objections to the process to be received. If there are no objectives, ministerial orders are prepared and forwarded to Cabinet Office for publication in the Gazette. Approval letter is issued to the applicant along with an original copy of the order. Approved manufacturer status is valid unless or until revoked by the minister with responsibility for the administering of the IEA. IEA renewal application process. Renewal is applied for annually by existing approved manufacturers. The following documents are required when applying for renewal: letter of request, current business license, current tax compliance, list of raw materials. This has been our presentation. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for that very informative presentation on the IEA. We will now share another short video highlighting another Bahamian manufacturer who has benefited from these concessions.
Well, Cottage mainly manufacture mattresses, box springs, pillows, and that's the core of our business there. Yeah, so most of our staff had worked at our factory. My grandfather, at the time, he didn't want to rebuild his factory, so I started and I supplied their retail store, and that's how I got my start. Manufacturing a small country with a small population, like we have 300 and some thousand, compared to Florida's 25 million. The US is 300 million. Jamaica's 3 million. They have more purchasing power than us. That's what we're up against. Then you have electricity and those sorts of things. Importing into a small island, those are some of the main challenges. But the Industries Encouragement Act encourages manufacturing and light industry in the country, and they do that through tax incentives by giving you get a duty-free access to raw materials and machinery. And even if you build like this factory here, we built this, and everything that we imported was duty-free. So what you do is you go to the ministry, you tell them what you want to make, and then you have to put it in the paper. They put it in the paper, you say what you want to do, and then you say what materials you'll be using, and they either grant it to you or they don't. Well, if we did not have the Industries Encouragement Act, I don't think we could survive. We've had, over the years, manufacturers have gone out of business when they're, but another thing we benefit from is our duties on our products are relatively high, so that helps us. But with some of the other items, when they've gone down to 0% or 5%, some of those manufacturers have gone out of business. So if we would have duties, if we would have to pay duties on top of competing with the imports, it would not be possible. Some niche area that you cannot get anywhere else in the world, you would have to be under some sort of act, like the Industries Encouragement Act. If you're out there doing business and you are manufacturing a product, and you're not under the Industries Encouragement Act, I've met a few people and I've gathered them to the ministry. You definitely should go out there and apply to be under the Industries Encouragement Act to see more potential out of your business.
Thank you to Cartwright's Bedding for that very positive and for that informative presentation video and your positive experience with the Industries Encouragement Act. So now we move it to our final presentation, and knowing how to get these concessions is obviously very important, but you also have to know how to correctly process your goods or materials at the border. So Miss Jasmika Cooper Monroe from the Customs Department will be presenting on the procedures at the border when dealing with the various concessions under the various pieces of legislation already discussed. Ms. Monroe, the screen is yours if you are ready. Hi, Ms. Monroe. I think you are still muted. If you can unmute and start again, please.
Good morning. Okay, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. So, culture being a license in your certificate, a valid, you would need a valid bond in place. So the major documents that would be required would be the bill of lading, and this is a detailed receipt that would indicate your ship in a particular container, or if it is a container being imported. The invoice, the packing list, and a valid business license. Once you produce these documents to customs, they would be submitted along with the C-13 form classified. If there is a misclassification, then you may run into some issues as goods in a timely fashion. Okay, so we have bonds. Even though you would receive the approval to have your goods duty-free or to receive concessions on the goods being imported, customs would still need to provide some security to cover our revenue, just in case the items imported, you may decide that you may want to sell those goods once they would have arrived, or you may no longer need it. So we would need to ensure that we cover the security for those goods. And there are various bonds required. And in order to enter into a bond agreement, you would need either a letter of guarantee from the bank or an insurance policy. And the bond agreement would be entered into by yourself, the bank, the insurance company, and the Comptroller of Customs. Bonds are renewed annually. For the Industries Encouragement Act, the bond required would be a C.B.6, and that's specific to the Industries Encouragement Act. For the Cottage and Light, it would be a CB6A form that would need to be completed. And if you have major projects such as Bahama or Nassau Airport development, they would require a general security bond, which is a CB10. For the Cottage and Light Act, with approved applications, the concessions are usually valid from 6 months to 1 year. And those items you can find listed in Chapter 98 of the Tariff Act, and the tariff would be Chapter 295. And you have a wide range of items. We have up to 161 items listed in the tariff. But if an item that you would need for your company is not listed, you can simply take that invoice to the Ministry of Finance and have it stamped. And once that's stamped is valid, it reflects like a current date, then customs, along with your other documents, would approve your items, have it processed, and then it would be examined by an officer to ensure that the items that are being imported is in fact what is listed. And once the officer is satisfied, then your goods would be released. As relates to the Industries Encouragement Act, as mentioned before, the bond required would be a C.B.6, and the duty-free concession would be classified under Chapter 9854. Prior to the Industries Encouragement being completely duty-free, it used to be where it was 1 to 5 years, and after the 5th period, you would have to pay 10%. But the government has since changed that, where all of the items that would be required, such as machinery or more raw materials, they would carry a duty-free concession. But it is important for you to have a bond in place. There is no specific amount. It really depends on the total value of the goods being imported for them to concessions for documents provided to us from yourself or what finance would have approved. And we would usually monitor those goods on a file that is kept by the department. So as you import your goods, we continue to mark off, and if you supersede or exceed what was approved, you can simply go back to finance with your invoice and simply have them approve it with the stamp and bring it back to the customs, submit it with all your other relevant documents for approval to ensure what you're saying is being imported. In agriculture and fishermen provide a valid permit. That valid permit attached with the
I think we lost Miss Monroe. She seems to be having some internet issues. Okay, I see she's back on now. Miss Monroe, can you hear me?
internet issues. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you now. Can you share your screen again? Hello? Okay, I think we lost Ms. Monroe again. We will try to get her back, but in the meantime, I know she still a few more slides and some good information to present. So in the meantime, until we can get her back, we can wrap up the presentations. We'd like to thank everyone for those very informative presentations. I don't know of anyone else, but I feel ready now to start my manufacturing business with all these great incentives and tax breaks from the government. As always, knowledge is key, and it's important to make it known that there are definitely ways to make it easier for local businesses to operate, and we must take advantage. So before we get into our live question segment, I would like to remind everyone to please, if you can, put your questions in the Q&A, so it is easy for us to follow and to ask our panelists. We also would like to remind everyone to please like and follow the social media pages of all the government agencies that are presented today, and visit their websites, and as they will have more information on these incentives and how to keep up to date with the exciting things the ministries are doing. We also would like to encourage those who want to get more involved in light industries to follow the Bahamas Light Industries Development Council on Facebook and visit their website at blidc.org. So, Ms. Monroe, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, I'm back. Sorry about that. I think
Okay.
it's the internet connection.
Yeah. I would suggest you to keep your video off, because that will help with any bandwidth issues. So yeah, right. So if you can, I guess, go back to the slide before agriculture, that's when you really started having some problems. And then we can.
Okay. All right, so I'm back to the Industry Encouragement Act. The bond that is required would be a C.B.SIT specific amount that is required. It really depends on the total value that's being imported on your machinery and your raw materials. And the duty-free concession, that would be applied from the Chapter 9854. The goods that's listed in the Industries Encouragement Act, that is where your approval would come from, or that is where the listed items would get the approval from. And if it's not listed in the act, you can simply take to the finance, approve finance, but it's submitted along the relevant documents. Once that is done, and they are the good that was submitted on the document, it is in fact good that's being imported, then you would have good.
Okay, yeah, I think Ms. Monroe is having some really bad technical issues. I think will probably be best is that if you have questions as it relates to customs, I think I can actually quickly share the last two slides that she had on industries, encouragement, and agricultural marine resources. So if there are questions on as it relates to either of these aspects, please put them in the chat, and then it may be easier for Ms. Monroe to type a response. So this was the IEA. I think if I have the most updated slide, and then this was the agriculture and marine resources. So if you can, if you have questions on any of these documents or procedures, just put your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and maybe Ms. Monroe will be able to answer them from the chat, or if she can put her contact information, either email or telephone, then you can reach out directly to her. So this is the process for the IEA. And then for agriculture. So that was the final two slides. Okay, so we'll also be sure to make the presentations available. We'll probably post them to our website, to the Ministry of Financial Services website. So just be sure to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and to keep posted on our website for when these presentations and the recording of this webinar will be posted. And you can also obviously contact the ministry as well. So I again would like to thank all of the panelists again for those great presentations. Thank you, Ms. Monroe, for your presentation. Again, I'm sure everyone found it very, very informative. So we will now get into the live Q&A, or to get to the questions that were put in the chat and in the Q&A box. There are loads I see, and we had questions sent in beforehand. So again, if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A function, and we'll try to get to as many as possible with the time that we have. So the Q&A portion will be moderated by Ms. Farah Stiles, who's a Foreign Services Officer here at the ministry, and she will present the questions to our presenters, who will do their best to give responses. Ms. Stiles?
Hi, good morning, everyone. So there were a lot of questions that we might have answered on the side, but some of them we will repeat in case anybody else has those questions. So the first question asked was, is there an online platform to access all of the applications? I know we can speak for the Industry Encouragement Act. You can apply online, but for the panelists, can you let the audience know if that applies for agriculture as well? Customs, are your applications online as well?
In the case of the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, the applicant must apply in writing. There's no online application. However, they can review the Agricultural Manufacturers Act itself online through the government website.
Good morning. With respect to the cottage light industry, there is an application online, but it's in the homepage of the government website. But it will be easier if you would just send us an email on the emails we left. We have an electronic version we could send to you. So that'll be the easiest thing to do, is to contact the revenue section for the actual form.
Okay, and the next question was about, somebody asked if organic products, i.e. natural or organic ingredients used for soaps or beauty products, would be considered for exemption. We answered that privately. So the answer is yes. If these are referring to raw materials that will create an end product, then yes, you would be able to apply for concessions. The next question would be for agriculture. The question is, would aquaculture fall under this act as well?
Yes, it would.
Okay. This person is in Grand Bahama. They said that they manufacture raw canvas and primer into canvas for artists. So their question is, if Ms. Smith would like to answer that for the IEA side, but as far as I know, the Grand Bahama has their own concessions available, and if you apply Freeport, right, with the agreement, but I will allow Ms. Smith to expand on that.
Sorry, Farah, you're breaking up. I don't know if you also want to.
Sorry, could you?
Video off. It may help.
Were you able to hear what I said? Okay, I'll repeat it.
No,
this person is in Grand Bahama, and they manufacture. Pardon? Are you able to hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm going to repeat the question because I'm not sure if you're able to hear it. So like I said, this person is in Grand Bahama and they manufacture raw canvas and primer into canvas for artists. They want to know if they qualify for concessions and where do they apply in Grand Bahama. This question is for any panelist to answer. Ms. Smith will be able to answer that.
Yes, if the individual wishes to become a registrant under the IEA, then they can make that application online. In Grand Bahama, there is the public treasury, so arrangements can be made for them to submit their payment for the processing of the application through the public treasury in Grand Bahama. But the application is online at the ministry's website, and they would be able to complete that application online and make the payment in Grand Bahama at the public treasury.
Okay. Now, this question is also for you, Ms. Smith. The question is, why is there a 15-year cap on the Industries Encouragement Act?
While the time is not specifically stated in the act, it is what is policy of the ministry. So for the exemption, income tax, revenue, and real property tax, the time given is 15 years. So that's a matter of policy of the ministry.
Okay, so another question asks, this is also related to the Industries Encouragement Act. They wanted to know if companies can reapply for an extension past the 15-year cap.
There is no provision for an extension beyond the 15 years.
All right, the next question says, are there any current or future concessions for tech companies? I don't know if this was directed to any specific ministry, but Finance, do you think you can answer that? They're asking if there are any current or future concessions for tech companies.
Good morning. Not to my knowledge, I don't know if there's anything currently available specifically for tech, but to be honest, most of the tech equipment have either a low duty rate or zero duty rate. But persons can apply to the Ministry of Finance in a written letter asking for consideration to be given. And then during the budget exercise, those recommendations could go to the cabinet level to make a decision on whether they could be, the duty could be reduced. So my suggestion, if you have specific items you would like for the duty to be reduced, then you could write to the Ministry of Finance and we could put it as part of the budget exercise, which is currently underway.
Okay, thank you. This next person said that they manufacture canvas for artists. Their raw materials are primers, lumbers, and canvas by the roll. What concessions do I qualify for? This is their question. So I'm thinking this depends on the value of their profits. So the depending on how much what your income looks like will determine whether you would fall under the Cottage and Light. So, or the Industries Encouragement Act. The next question, they asking, would building materials fall under this if one was building a crop farm? I don't know which presenter they were asking this question to, but I'm guessing they're referring to agriculture. They're asking if building materials fall under this if one was building a crop farm.
A crop farm, they have to remember too that Agricultural Manufacturers Act is for the manufacturing of goods. So if you're just building a crop farm, unless I'm not understanding the question, if you're just building a crop farm, I would say no. It has to be for a agricultural produce that has a final manufactured, you have a final manufactured product. So I don't know if they want to go into more details about exactly what they mean by that.
Okay. The next question, they're asking if beads and jewelry findings and drills used for creating jewelry and bead presses be included. So I'm assuming they're referring to the Cottage and Light Act. So finance, would this fall under you? Would beads and jewelry findings and drills will be included in this act?
Yeah, the short answer would be yes. If you're manufacturing something, then the raw materials and the machinery will qualify. Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Okay. This question is for you, Ms. Smith. They're asking, how do startup manufacturers qualify for the Industries Encouragement Act?
Okay, so the company or the individual would make the application to become registered under the IEA. You provide a business plan, and depending on the projected revenue, then it would be determined if this is an application that should be processed under the IEA or under the Cottage and Light. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question, this seems to be directed to customs. They are asking, if you have a bond in Grand Bahama, do you still have to make the request for exemption of duty for manufacturing equipment?
The bonds in Grand Bahama, the bonding goods that are imported into Grand Bahama, that's under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. So they would enter their goods on a C14 as opposed to C13. So the bonding codes would not be applicable in this case.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cooper. The next question, this is also.
Me? Does that answer the question?
I guess if the person who asked the question, if you need more clarification, you can let us know. Okay, so the next question is also related to the Industries Encouragement Act. They said, Ms. Smith said consumables are not covered for exemption, but what if consumables are a major part of your production process, example, in printing and publishing?
As a registrant under the Act and your approved product if consumables are a part of the processing of that product, then yes, you will get the exemption.
Okay, the next question, this seems to be related to finance. They're asking you to expand on the requirements needed for obtaining the tax compliance certificate.
Okay, the tax compliance certificate, you would approach the Department of Inland Revenue. Exactly what their requirements are, I'm not quite sure, but once you put that application in, they will go out and do their research to determine whether you owe taxes to the government. That'll be NIB, real property tax, and so forth. Once they're satisfied that those taxes are not outstanding, then they will issue the tax compliance certificate. But your initial step would be to approach the Department of Inland Revenue.
Okay, thank you, Talman. So this, I think you can also answer this as well. It was mentioned that there are 1,000 plus manufacturers in the Bahamas. Does that include all of the various islands?
The answer is yes.
Do you have the breakdown of how many different manufacturing areas there are? Okay, right. And so they're also asking, do you have the breakdown of how many different manufacturing areas there are? And what percent possible areas, agricultural, fisheries, souvenirs, bath, body products, etc.?
We could probably get a type of information breaking down into those categories. We don't have it readily available. But in terms of the, there was agricultural and fisheries items, I'll say it'll be a small percentage, because most persons will go under the Agricultural Act or so forth. So with us, that percentage is very small. I would say less than 5% or 3%.
Okay, thank you. So somebody is asking for the panelists to repeat the annual revenue to qualify for these exemptions. I know the exemptions are different for finance and the Industries Encouragement Act. So I guess Ms. Smith can reiterate.
Okay, under the Industries Encouragement Act, the revenue is up to $1 million. So in order to qualify for the concessions, the exemptions, it's up to $1 million. And that is not specifically stated in the Act. However, that is a matter of policy of the ministry.
Okay, this person is saying their passport has expired. They are not renewing it anytime. So they're asking if a copy of their expired passport will be accepted, or if they can use their voter's card as proof of citizenship. I don't know if that's referring to the Industries Encouragement Act, but I guess that generally, would that suffice for finance or any of the departments that presented? Are they able to use their voter's card?
We prefer a current passport. Yeah, we probably prefer a current passport, to be honest with you.
Okay, it seems like under the Industries Encouragement Act, they also prefer the passport. Okay, the next question asks, which one of these acts does beekeeping equipment and glass jars come under? I'm not sure if anybody can. So Cottage and Light, would that be under Cottage and Light?
For We have persons that have registered under the for beekeeping under the Cottage light. So yes, you can do that. But I think it has to do with the turnover. We look at the smaller guys, but beekeeping definitely could be done under the Cottage light industry.
Okay. This next question asks, what are the procedures and/or requirements in order to use a natural raw ingredient or material in the production of a finished product or good? Example, tamarind, guava, aragonite, camelami bark, etc. So I'm guessing that would be for agriculture. They're asking what are the procedures or requirements in order to use a natural raw ingredient or material in the production of a finished good.
If they're referring to the standards and terms like that, they would come the best department or food safety. But I mean, they can call us for us to give them a bit more detailed information regarding that. Now, in terms of them wanting to manufacture these items, then that will definitely come under the Agricultural Manufacturers Act. But in terms of standards and procedures required to use these natural products, that would definitely come under BEST or the Agricultural Food Safety Authority Board.
Okay. The next question they're asking, okay, this is kind of a long question. Okay, I think this is referring to finance. Hold on. They said, given that you have a list of 1,011 approved Bahamian manufacturers, does T&I have a documented plan to make certain that all consumers, both Bahamian and foreign, engaging in a business in the country are given concessions or pressures if they deal with one or more of these manufacturers? How is this in conflict with foreign investors that do business here at the expense of Bahamian businesses, such as the Hotel Encouragement Act? Calvin, do you think you can answer that?
So I stepped away. Could you repeat the question again for me, please?
Yeah, I know it's quite a long question, but they're saying that we have a list of 1,011 approved Bahamian manufacturers. So does T&I have a documented plan to make certain that both Bahamian and foreign business owners in the country are given concessions if they deal with one or more of these manufacturers? I guess it is a confusing question. I don't know if you understand it.
Not. If there are established persons doing a particular industry, the National Economic Council will try to assist those persons rather than having foreigners participate in that same entity. I think the Bahamians will probably be given priority. That's my personal comment on that.
Okay. Okay, another question. This person asked, is it possible for a business functioning in Freeport under the Port Authority to take advantage of these ministries? If so, how or who should we contact? So I would direct this to Customs to answer.
Hi, good morning again. We have a section called bonded goods. I would have shared the contact information for Mistress Laureen Smith. She would be able to further provide that information to you.
Okay, thank you.
But I think I can answer for at least for the IEA. You cannot be a licensee in the port and also benefit from the concessions granted under the IEA. So you can't have both. You either have to, if you apply as and become approved manufacturer under the Industries Encouragement Act, you can't also be a licensee at the port. So it's either one or the other. I'm sure that applies to the other agencies as well, but finance and agriculture, I guess you can chime in on that point as well.
Yeah, we agree with those comments.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next question, this person is asked, okay, this person said that they were approved for concessions prior, but have not registered for 2 years. So they're asking how would they re-register? I don't know which ministry they are referring to, but I don't know if it would be different for each ministry. But from the Industries Encouragement Act, I will let Ms. Smith speak.
Under the IEA, it's simply renewal. So you would write a letter requesting renewal of the concessions, provide a current business license, provide your current certificate, tax compliance certificate, and a listing of raw materials.
Can each ministry or department, can you let us know if your re-registration process is similar? What are the requirements with you?
For the Agricultural Manufacturers Act, it would be a matter of renewal. However, they would have to provide a current listing and an update on possibly another site inspection, or just to see what's been taking place in the past 2 years and what is projected to take place in whatever changes have happened in that space of time. So it would simply be a matter of renewal and just bringing the department up to speed.
Yeah, with us, it will be a renewal process as well. We would not need to have an up-to-date business license and tax compliance certificate and a listing of the new materials they wish to import. And we'll also do an on-site visit.
Okay. Okay, this next question, they're asking, what is the process for importing items through a courier company if approved for the Cottage and Light Industries Act?
That may be out of our sphere, but the process you will, if you get approval from us, then you will take that to your courier or broker, and they would use that to apply to your entry. Now, what they do exactly, we're not 100% sure, but our responsibility in that would be giving you the approval, and that would be attached to the entries when the items arrive. That's the best I can answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Great. So the next question, if you are interested in making dolls and bed comforters, would the materials and tools needed for these products be considered tax exempted?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Once you, like I said, once you're manufacturing, then you could, the materials will qualify. And the machinery as well.
Okay. This question, are there grants for persons who are interested in getting into the manufacturing industry but may not have the finances? Carmen, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I would probably direct them to approach the Small Business Development Center. They may have some loans or some grants available that would assist them, but from our end, we're not responsible for that.
Okay. Somebody, okay, I guess this is related to, to agriculture. This person asks, if we have generation land, can we work with the commonage to acquire land for farming or manufacturing?
Can you repeat the question, please?
They're saying that if they have generation land, can they work with the commonage to acquire land for farming or manufacturing?
Yes, I think they can do that. They would need to approach them, and once they give consent, they should be able to get whatever anything for manufacturing that they wish to under the act. Because the item would not be tied to the land per se. It depends on what the person is doing. So yes, they can apply.
Okay. This next question, they asked if would Crown land be available for any form of manufacturing? Finance team, would you be able to answer that? Or, okay.
Again, that yes, once you have the land, you can, you will have to apply. If you don't have the land, you will need to apply. Now, bear in mind in New Providence, there's limited agricultural crown land, but you can also access crown lands under the Ministry of Finance. I mean, the Prime Minister's Office, Department of Lands and Surveys. So yes, you can apply for crown land. But if it's an agricultural project, you can apply for crown land under the agricultural project. Any other land, crown land, you will need to go to the Department of Lands and Survey.
Okay, thank you. This next question. Okay. Does duty-free concessions apply to greenhouse and hydroponics materials? Agriculture?
Yes, you can. Persons who are operating greenhouses or anything that is agriculturally related, you can apply through the Department of Agriculture, but you have to be a registered farmer. You have to be registered in order to access those concessions. So you can make your request through the Department of Agriculture. If they need more information, they can contact us and we can see what, whether they have been registered before. If they have registered before and they are not currently registered, we will have to go through the registration process again. So they're free to contact us, and yes, they can get crown lands on the agriculture. I mean, they can get, sorry. They can still hear? Is it on? Okay. But yes, they can contact the Department of Agriculture. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, this next question, they are asking, are concessions extended to home-based manufacturing businesses? And the answer would be yes. If you, as long as you fit the requirements, you're importing goods to create a final product, then yes. So it doesn't matter how small or how, right. And you would just have to register and you would be able to benefit from these concessions. This next question, they're asking, what about the benefits for Bahamian businesses under the Commercial Enterprises Bill? I don't know who the question was directed to, but Finance, are you able to answer that?
Not least but our department, we're not quite familiar with that. The commercial enterprises bill, we don't process that, so I'm not sure who would be responsible for accepting those applications, to be honest with you. We could probably find out and get back to them, but right now I'm not sure.
Okay. The next question, do exceptions granted only apply to products that are not manufactured? I don't know if we understand the question. So anyway, can any of the panelists answer that? If not, then maybe the person can add more clarification. But they're asking, do exceptions granted only apply to products that are not manufactured in the Bahamas to protect local industry? Okay.
I don't understand my question.
Yeah, I guess we'll leave it. Okay. This next question, they're asking, would the manufacturing, production, and processing of food products for in-country and export distribution be considered a cottage and light industry?
The manufacturing of food?
It just says, oh yeah, food products, yes.
Well, the short answer would be no for us.
Maybe.
I'm not sure if there's any other acts, but that will be a no for us.
Agriculture, would you be able to answer that? Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat the question for us, please?
Okay. They're asking if the manufacturing, production, and processing of food products for in-country and export distribution be considered a cottage and light industry.
I'm unable to answer that question at this time. So I'll have to do more research on that.
Okay. Right. The next question, what is the process of using shipping companies to bring in items and presenting the required documents to customs for exemption? So customs, would you be able to respond?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
What is the process of using shipping companies to bring in items and presenting the required documents to customs for exemption?
Okay, thank you. So once you would have purchased your goods, you would have your goods delivered to a particular shipping company of your choice. There's a wide range. For example, Betty K, Mr. Ship It, 9 to 5 Imports, Tropical Shipping. It's a lot of shipping companies that is available to you as an importer. And once you have your goods delivered, they would then ship your goods to the Bahamas or to Nassau or to whichever island you're located. And they usually have a custom broker that is present in their area or that is attached to the company who can complete the documents for you. And the necessary documents would be your commercial invoice, the bill of lading, a packing list if necessary, and your approved application from any one of the ministries that you would seek approval from. And the broker would then process your information and have the entry submitted to customs. And once that is done, you can receive the release of your goods.
Okay, thank you. This question says, how long does it take for manufacturers to receive the permits, documents, and approvals from the government? What is the waiting period? It would be different for each ministry, but for the Industries Encouragement Act, the average time is 8 weeks. I don't know what the time is like for agriculture and finance. I guess you can speak to that.
From Ministry of Finance perspective, once all the relevant documents are there, it should take no more than say a week or so at the max.
Okay. Thank you. This next question, is there a minimum percentage of the value that should include labor in assembling? I don't know who they were referring the question to, but. Okay. I'll just move on to the next question. Okay, this person is asking, is there an approval process that go through before exporting to other countries or selling within the Bahamas? And are there label requirements for products such as bath and body products or products made for consumption?
To get permission to export, you first will have to have approval of the importing country. So that requests need to go on the BAFSA, who deals with food standards and any standards for export to any other country. Because in order to, for instance, if you export into the US, you will need to find what US import requirements are. So that would be first, you will need to contact the Department of Agriculture. We will in turn liaise with Bahamas, the Food Safety Department, Agricultural Food Safety, Food and Animal Safety Department to see what that is required by the importing country. So you cannot just export like that. You have to have permission. The same thing with persons wishing to import into the Bahamas. There needs to be the person who wants to import into the Bahamas need to find out what our import requirements would be.
Okay, thank you. This next question, I'm guessing it's for agriculture. They're asking, are raw material, flour, yeast, packaging, fruits, oils, butter, and machinery for wholesale bakery covered for exemptions under any of these incentives?
Under the Agriculture Manufacturers Act, because I'm guessing like bakeries, they would be making bread, etc., or whatever they will be using. They will be, I think that should be under the Manufacturers Act.
Yes, they would qualify under the cottage and light industry.
Okay. This next question says, is there a cap on the amount of registrants or concession values for cottage and light?
Not per se. Like I said, we will be more interested in their size. So if they're like a larger operation, we'll probably steer them towards the Industries Encouragement Act. But in terms of the actual items, there's no official cap on those items.
Okay. The next question, does white labeling fall under any of these acts? Repackaging and processing of, for example, concentrated raw materials.
I'm not sure if I understand the question, to be honest with you.
Okay. Okay, it seems like that's all the time we have for questions and answers. However, if we were unable to answer your question, you can also send us an email and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Okay, so in that regard, I would just like to turn over the session now. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, Sam, but if not, then I would hand it over to the PS.
Thank you, Ms. Stiles. And thank you, everybody, participants, representatives of the business community, partners from other government agencies, in particular the Ministry of Finance, Agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for participating in today's event, and I trust that you were able to gain more insight into available opportunities and the necessary requirements to successfully obtain concessions. Our ministry will use some of the questions raised today to add to our frequently asked questions section on our website at mofstii.gov.bs. If you have any additional questions, please forward them to our renewals application email at renewalsapplication@bahamas.gov.bs. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Mr. Campbell, I think you can sum up.
Thank you, PS Miller. And that will conclude our webinar. We are within the time frame, so set 10 to 12. So again, if I see there are people still asking about contact information and for more questions, just please contact the relevant agency or department. You can look them up on social media. Everyone has a social media page. Obviously, you can contact them via telephone. So I'm sure they will be happy to assist in any questions you may have and guide you through the process to obtaining any concessions or incentives that the government provides. Also, if you missed some of this webinar or know someone who would find the information beneficial, please let them know to follow the Ministry of Financial Services, Trade and Industry, and Immigration on our social media pages, Facebook and Twitter, where the recording will be available immediately after this webinar closes, and we will have the recording posted on our website and distribute to the other agencies so they can have it as well. Thank you again for your participation, and we hope you have a blessed day. Thank you.